I'm a creature of habit. I have my selection of about 3 or 4 hats and about 3 or 4 boiler suits. But today, I have to dress like a banana. Because I'm painting. Oh god, the sun's in my eyes here. Hold on. We have them all set up the best I can set them up. And it's time to start mixing paint. I was going to video this, but I think I'll just time lapse this because this is one of those projects that is going to take a lot longer than you actually realise. So. So, it's 1:45 in the morning. There's a reason I called this page Midnight Fabricator. Today, I spray painted all them parts outside, but I've had this compressor quite a long time, and I generally know what she sounds like. She was sounding like she was labouring, and the labouring got to the point where I was like, that doesn't sound good. And I came in and she was sitting nearly 140 psi. If you know anything about compressors, she shouldn't be 140. And mine usually cuts out between 115 and 120, and that's even a bit high. But my compressor is as old as the hills. I'm as old as the hills when you compare that, because that compressor was bought second hand. I dickied it up, but the sales docket for it says 1984. So it sold in 1984. So it's a potential bomb, let's be realistic. And I had to call in reinforcements because I know nothing about compressors. I can understand the basics of it, but I called in my mate Wally, and thanks Wally, you saved me getting blew up. But we took the on-off switch apart, he tinkered with it, we turned her up, turned her down, let her run, and she now cuts out at 100 psi just to be a wee bit more conservative. But that delayed progress, something shocking. And while Willie was here, the pair of us, with help from YouTube, took this apart. Now, she wasn't putting out voltage, and what voltage she was putting out wasn't very impressive. But it was tinkered with, and it was taken apart, and the bearing needs replaced. But I'm glad to say she's putting out voltage. So at least now, and it's not bad. It wouldn't be as high as I would like it, but it's kicking out between 6 and 7 volts. Now, I had the drill on that at full chat to see what she would do. So we'll see once she gets going, and once we put her onto the tractor. I might need to replace it or upgrade it to a 12 volt one, but I'm just glad that it's not another thing that's completely scrapped. Now, during the course of the tinkering this evening, I managed to get this carrier back on again and the belt. And I have the pin for the pivot liberally greased because it's an exposed bare piece of metal, and I know fine well what's going to happen. It's just going to be rust everywhere. So I greased it, and I've put this on, and I've put the carrier back on for this boy because he sits on here. But surprise, surprise, I don't have any bolts. Not the right bolts. I have ones that are probably a wee bit too long, and I don't really want to cut them down, so I'll get more bolts. But that gave me a bit of a scare the day, and having to call my mate over to give me a hand, ended up in tinkering, talking about what I'd done, going around different things, so the evening got away from us. But I don't want to go to bed yet, and if a full case of boost there, I'm just going to get stuck in and see if I can't get the rest of this front axle put together. Now, because I have this all nicely painted, I now have no references to where I'm supposed to bolt anything back together again. So I'm going to have to check the camera and check my previous video to see where the holes were that I lined this up with. Now, I think going with the rust marks, I might get away with it. I might be able to line it up, but when you're not sure, I don't want to have her too wide. So I'm going to have to check the camera, but I'm basically going to record me bringing in all the bits that I painted and bolting them all back on again because I wasn't able to get the cranking nut. I went to the Tractor Supplies Dunlops, who have kept me right the whole way through this. They're fantastic, and I'm sure their heads turned with me. But that is the only thing that I haven't been able to get. Everything else they have been able to get for me, and have kept me right with all the things I did wrong. So I potentially might look online. I didn't realise there was a difference between the 35 cranking nut and this one. Obviously, I thought they'd be the same. And any I had on my watch list on eBay were for 35. So I'll have to look into that a wee bit more. And should I have to take this carriage off again, well, I've got a crane and a gantry, so we can lift it off if I have to and touch up any of the damaged paint. But I was meant to rebuild the carb tonight. I'm not rebuilding that tonight. That's too fiddly and too long. I want to do something that feels like I have achieved something. So I'm going to check the camera, then I'm going to turn that back on again, and I'm going to put all the bits of the axle back together again. And hopefully, in theory, that should be the front axle final build, final put together. So it'll be a thing ticked off the list. And then that'll be me prepped and ready for tomorrow for painting the dash. And I'm going to touch in a few bits with the spray gun down low where it's got rubbed or scuffed. And I don't want there to be any bits that the paint's bad when I've only this much bother. So give me a wee minute. I'm going to check the video that I had previously. I'm going to turn the camera back on again and bring all this stuff in and start bolting on. So, okay, now I see the pictures. I feel a bit silly. So, that's the way I have set it up there at the minute, which is wrong. It's that. It's quite a difference. Right, so going by that. This is not easy to do on your own. There is no persuader handy. There it is. Go for the polite persuader. Right. It doesn't look right in my head, but I think it is right. And that sometimes happens. Right. So, stick the nut and washer on. Now I have a wee lock washer in them and a plain nut instead of a lock nut because I think a lock nut would look silly on this tractor, but I think that's right. I honestly don't know at this point. I don't think it should have been much wider than that, to be fair. Now, so that boy has to be put on second. I'm on a roll tonight. Right. We'll get there. Right. To be fair, that does start to look a wee bit more like it. Right. Let's see. These nuts, I don't know if it's intentional, but they seem to be sided, where one side has a rounded head on it. This is for the foot peg. That could be wear, let's be honest. I'm going to build up one side at a time, and I have a few bits and pieces I need to do yet. I still have I'm calling them track rods. I haven't painted them yet. The reason being, I took them apart, and let's see if I can show you in the video. Took them apart. Where we at? Now, if I come up and close, can you see the grime and the oil and the grease? Now, these aren't a pipe. These are, in fact, a rolled piece of flat steel into the shape of a pipe. But I'm having quite a substantial amount of bother getting all that crud from up the inside out. And there's no point in me painting over the top of oil and grease. I'm confused as to why there's such a substantial... Where am I here? Look at the glistening of that. So I would imagine that was my fault. I'd say I've probably liberally sprayed that with something at some point, but I'm not painting them like that. So what I'm going to have to do is I'll probably use the map gun to burn a lot of that off it, but I'm going to have to go through that with a pick and a scrape, wire wheel the whole thing back down to bare metal, and then of course they'll have to be painted, and then once they're painted, then I'm going to fit them. But there's no point wasting an hour messing about with that tonight whenever I'll only achieve one thing. I want to get these here built up for now, and then I can go around and I can touch up any of the wee bits of paint. So where's the other bolts? There we go. So I know these stick out like a sore thumb, but you know something, I don't think I'm going to paint them. I quite like them. I might shorten them a wee bit for they're a bit long, but she's not going to be an original tractor, and anything that's new nickel plated, I might as well keep new nickel plated, unless at a later point they annoy me. I'll maybe paint them, but for now I think I'm okay with it. Now, I had difficulty the last time with this. What way was it? We will feed them into the brackets. Also, I'd prefer to have a large washer on the front of this, but I don't have any washers that size. Quite a substantial size. I'll have to nip into the town to get them. Right, so keep that boy off for now. Just going to set them two nuts somewhere. Oh. I'll say one thing, there's not too many light things in this tractor. Whoa. Persuasion. Now, nuts and washers. This may not be exciting to watch, but this is exciting for me because I have been waiting for this day for a long time. I'm fully aware there's a lot of bits I'll still have to be tidied up and cleaned and painted, but I'm not sure if it's the right word, but I think it's magneto. I thought it was scrap, so if I can even get it to go to get the tractor going and replace or repair at a later date, that was a success tonight. I'm happy about that. The paint, although not perfect, is a good starting point to get a lot of the other stuff tidied up. And I feel like I'm achieving something. The paint took a brief hold of that. It's not typical. Right. Must have lifted the smallest hammer on. Yeah, that's no use. There we go. That's just excess paint by me painting today. They were free before I started to put this together and paint it. Now this is the point I had a bit of an issue with the last time. The whole axle itself has to come forward on that pin. So I always wondered what these bits were for, but it's basically locating the axle that way on the pin itself. So an unusual design, but then again I don't really do much with old tractors, very much so. See, I'm 2 knots in loose. Put that punch back where she belongs. And persuasion. Right. I'm going to have to locate the nuts for them. I'm not sure where they are. I have boxes of random bolts everywhere. Now, as I say, that is the old bolts. I had to end up cutting them. But, let's see what one is there. You see the state of the threads? Where are we at? They're just grubby and really bad. Now I used the burners to try and get them free. They would not come free. And this is my box of spare parts. But they're not really spare parts. They're bolts that need replaced. Or there's a substantial amount of them that are just... they're just clean rotten. Like, I don't even know where that belongs. Oh, where are we at? I don't even know where that belongs. I haven't found a home for that yet, which is a problem. But even a lot of the studs have been grew on that long that they have become part of it. So I replaced, that's one of the studs that I replaced for the manifold. And I'm not putting that back on, there's no point. But I do believe I have the nuts here and the 2 washers. Let's see now. Is that going that way? Yep. Right. That's the nut for that boy. Find the other spring washer. Put it on there. The threads in this one are going to be a bit hairy, but she might start. Baiting it down through with a hammer is probably not the best thing for threads now, to be fair. I think that's a problem for future Shane. Well, should have to, but potentially I'm going to have to run a die over that. But I'm not happy with all these wee bits of mist. So what I'm actually going to do is I might just throw a wee taste of paint into this paint gun and blow in any of the obvious parts. And At least then that's the axle built up. So I'll come back to you once I have a wee taste of paint in the paint gun. Fluff in these few bits, go to my bed, come out in the morning, and get these boys finished up. And then that's the front axle done. I just have the bonnet to start next, and I'm dreading that. That's what's left of my grill. Not brilliant, not brilliant. But again, I have to say, I got these, so I'm going to replace these into this. And then whatever I don't use, I can give back. Again, Dunlops, thank you. But the bonnet is going to be a big project, and there's a whole lot of bits on it that have rusted into holes. Now, bearing in mind this tractor sat in a field for I don't know how many years, 30 odd years. So that's just out of her on both of them. And the T section of the front grille, there's none left. It's completely in bits. So I'm not really impressed with the reproduction ones. They're not very nice. The reproduction ones don't look right at all. But I'm going to attempt to try and put these boys together for my toolbox. So I'm wondering what way around this is supposed to go, because I'm not actually sure. So that'll be the bigger end. That'll be the weir end. Stick you there. Yeah, feed the nut in from the outside. Dip it. Feed that through. Yeah, okay. Feed that through the toolbox itself. I am by no means teaching anybody how to do this. I am going on a wing and a prayer here and hoping that I get it right. And if I don't get it right, I can go back and fix it later on. So don't take this as guidance. Not only do I have no experience working around these tractors, but I have never worked on a Ferguson before this. Now let's see, way around. Right. This could be wrong, but that's basically what I've done there, and I'm going to try and feed this onto this arm, and hopefully that's supposed to be about the 50th time I've took this off. Good job I put copper grease in all the threads, or it wouldn't come off. Right. See you there for a second. Right. I didn't even think that would work. Well, this is going to be a task and a half here. Well, that's going to be sore in my paint. It's going to be very sore in my paint. Right, if I set that back up, should that be further that way? At this moment in time, I'm in line with the bell housing, and I feel like it should be a wee bit further. Loosen that off on it. This is definitely going to scrape my paint. Once the hammer comes out, you know it's going to scrape the paint. I think I have this on upside down. I'm going to bring these in to show you what I've done wrong. Now, I'm just using the handheld for this. Can anybody see what I've done wrong here? Right, so what I'm going to try and do is I'll bring the camera in a wee bit closer. By the way, this is my technical camera stand. But lift my tin a bit out the way. Bring the camera stand in a bit closer. And hopefully, if I tilt this camera right, there we're flying. Right. Let's see now. Try this again. Nah, it's marred the paint and everything. Right, well, it is what it is. It's hard to be like that, would it? But I maybe had it right in the first place. That does not look right. Could be. See, when you buy stuff for a tractor this age, it should come with instructions. A link to a video or something. Because most people don't have a tractor for reference. Myself included. What I would really need is another Ferguson tractor sitting here that's in mint condition to compare notes with. Because at the minute, see, whenever you try to Google anything to do with these tractors, there seems to be there's 10 routes to do everything, and everybody thinks you're wrong no matter what you do. I posted a video on TikTok about I went and got a tin of paint the other day, and I wasn't happy with it because it wasn't the same paint as what I had got previously. Because I hadn't went back to the same place I'd originally went for my paint. Turns out there's a rather big debate about what colour of grey a Ferguson should be. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, in my opinion, I was told that it is battleship grey. Because Stoneleigh grey is the grey I would put on a Massey Ferguson, a modern Massey Ferguson. Now, this isn't a Massey Ferguson, this is a Ferguson. So, I have went to the one place to get my paint up to this point, and I couldn't get the other day, so I went somewhere else, asked for the specific paint that I was looking for. They were like, yep, we keep that in stock. I was all pleased, went and got it, and they brought me out, look the right paint. Brought it home, and I done a short on it, and a TikTok on it. It's got like a green hue to it or something. It's just really wrong. I don't know what's different about it, or maybe somebody else is just a different way of making it. But whenever I painted the bracket for my earth, I have a wee clip there for holding on my earth lead. It sticks out like a sore thumb. So I should have went back to the place I had went to originally, but they're not open on Saturday. And I went to them today, got the correct paint for less money, might I add, and got little things like these brackets here. I'm not convinced this is right. We can see. Right. But the paint I got today was the same brand I'd been using from the same supplier. I didn't have to worry about it being a different colour. I just went and bought the paint and job done. So my advice on that one is, if you buy paint off somebody, continually buy the same paint off them people, because you know it's going to match. Don't do what I done and go to about 10 different places. For I have Stoneleigh grey, I have whatever that other grey is, it looks like it's got a green thing off it. I don't know if that's right. partially feel like it should be there and slightly lower down with those two straps, but I don't think the bolt should be at the top. And I think I'm just going to go with what I think looks right. But I think it should be further up the chassis. This is definitely going to need a lot of painting now. The only thing I will say is, do your tractor the way you want to do your tractor. Stop listening to everybody else like I did at the start, because it caused me nothing but headaches of everybody trying to tell me what way I was doing it wrong. And the advantage I have at the minute now is I'm at the stage where I'm sort of past the point of being able to change a lot of stuff. And if somebody doesn't like it, well, that's just a different way of doing the same job. A lot of people don't like this toolbox on the side of it, but I'm putting this toolbox back onto the side of it because this is where my dad had the toolbox on the side of it. In fact, I'm just going to lift my dad's toolbox. Personally, I would have liked to have kept his toolbox on it. That's just left of my dad's toolbox. It was on with two big ignorant bits of flat steel, and it's not a Ferguson toolbox, it's just a random toolbox. I am a welder by trade, but I am not a magician. By the time I would replace the bits of that was damaged, it would be so much of it new that it wouldn't be really the right toolbox at all. Now, I'm going to keep this toolbox for myself, but there's no point doing this to this tractor and then putting something back on it again that looks like, yeah, looks like that. Which is a shame, but sometimes you just have to accept whenever a thing's too far gone. Am I over tightening? Probably. But I don't think there's a torque setting for this. A little bit fiddly. I like the principle of it, of the way they've done the bracket. With me having a front loader, it'd be more practical for me to have a toolbox towards the front of the tractor. And as I've shown in another video, the place where I'm supposed to screw it on is badly damaged. So I'm not going to be starting to weld bits like that back in again, so I can put a toolbox up in there as well. If I need to in the future, I might put a toolbox on one of the mudguards. But now that all needs painted. So I had them hanging upside down, and you see this. Great paint job there. So this will only paint it back in again, and this will need painted back in again. But now that she's sitting on the flat, that will be a good opportunity to get a nice wee flat surface of spray paint onto it. Now, she's starting to look like what she's supposed to look like. I'm happier with that. The wee strappings aren't just sitting down the way I like them, but with gentle persuasion, everything will fit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you what I got for that toolbox. And I'm very pleased to say I got my own Ferguson spanner. That was basically a gift for all I paid for it. I think he was just trying to be nice that day. And I found this my dad's belongings down in the shed. It would have been with the tractor. It's probably not the original one. I don't know what it says on there. No, I wouldn't imagine that's the proper one for it, but I'm happy enough because, as I say, there's only 2 grease nipples on the front axle, so nice wee grease gun. And then I have these. Now, if you look on the bottom of that filler neck, there is a wee breather. So that is for fuel and that is for oil. Now, I know these aren't original, but these came out of another tractor of a friend of mine, and that is what they were used for in his tractor, and they stayed in his toolbox all of its life. And that wee filler neck stops the, well, I'll be putting petrol mostly in this here, so that'll stop the petrol from filling up and choking. And it's got a nice wee gauze on it. To be honest with you, it kind of looks like somebody's made this, the way it's been soldered together. And the other one is literally just because that's what he used for filling in the oil, so that's what I'm going to use. And I put those 4 in there, and then I'm definitely putting a padlock on, because every show you go to, somebody's sticky fingers is going to be away with it. And I'm going to break my neck here. Right, back into focus, please. Hey! So, the only issue I have with this here is it does seem to be lining up badly. Right, that's the axle level. Yeah, I'm happy enough with it. So when I'm painting the dash, what I'll do is I'll come across here and I'll give this a dusting as well. Because the back of the hinge and the top of this has got fingerprints on it, even though I've got gloves on. So all the tops of all the surfaces, everything got at least, if not 2 to 3 coats of red oxide. Way back at the start, whenever I cleaned everything down with the needle gun. But I wasn't happy with this front axle because I think I rushed it to get it painted grey. But it does have a very good coating of red oxide on it. This here has had at least 3, and these came red oxide. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a bit of gentle persuasion to sit a bit nicer. It's very nice to get the toolbox back on. So, cover this back up again with my bin bags, very professional. And that's the front axle mostly built up. On to the next project. So we have, we'll call her the safety officer. This is Misty. Misty's in for cuddle and a checkup. So she does this about 5 times a night. So if I sit down at all and she comes, and she usually ends up on my knee, because this is now her bed. Now, I didn't want a cat, but I spent a lot of time with a cat for a guy who didn't want a cat. But she'll sit there whether I'm welding, hammering, grinding, get the odd dirty look, but she comes in every night and does this for about 5 minutes, checks for food along the floor, and then leaves again. So, say hi to Misty. Here we are, it's the next night, and I think I'm still tired from last night, but you know, the time is 10 p.m. because that seems to be the time I start this sort of stuff. Last night I should have went to bed. I should have went to bed instead of tinkering, because I tinkered far too much and didn't record enough. But what I have got done, and I'm going to try and show you, because, well, I wonder can I do it with this camera, save me having to change everything around. The dash is painted. Now, you can see by the reflection there, it's not perfect, but it's definitely got a lot less dents in it. I'm just sort of shining the light over it. And that side as well. The paint came out a lot better than I expected. Now, the centre column, I have touched in a few of these wee bits with the brush, but more so on the top of these wee... See these wee boys here? They're not coach bolts, but they're something similar. I want to take that apart, and they're spinning, so they're staying on there. And hopefully now I get you fit. Where are we at? This wee boy here, I had to buy him. Mine was, well, the back of it was missing. That wee boy was over 40 quid, and that's just the battery charging light, but it doesn't look right without it. And then I have my new Lucas key, and you'll see this odd shaped, rather large hole here. I have a switch that has a similar shape of bezel on it as that, and I'm going to use it for the lights. Now, it wasn't on this tractor, it was in a random box I found in what we call the greenhouse at home. The greenhouse is just basically a big shed. But lots of boxes of Pruck, and there was one of them happened to just look right. So I have to make a wee plate because this hole is too big. Now, hold on, I'll down her over here to show you what was on it. Sitting around here somewhere, there's a wee plate. No, don't see it. So there's a wee plate, and it's shaped something similar to that. Obviously a lot smaller. That's a gasket for the carburetor. Same principle of shape, and that took up the dead space, but I don't really like it, and I don't really know what way to go about fixing the hole without having to weld, and so I'm going to try and make a wee plate there for anyway. But a few other wee bits I got done was, now that I know that the dynamo generator, whatever you call that bit anyway, this wee boy here, I get carried away. I'm going to try and turn this camera around a bit. Look at that, nice and shiny. So I cleaned this all back down with a Dremel and a wire wheel, and I took it back down to aluminium. Now, this is a bit shinier than I would like, but I had either the choice of matte black or gloss black, and I went for gloss. I think I'll probably be better with satin, but I'm going to send it for this now. Now, I'm trying to turn this camera so you can see what I'm looking at, but see down in there, I've all the wee brass, just dropping this thing, I've all the wee brass fittings and everything all nicely cleaned up. But I'm all over the show with this camera because I wanted to show bits and pieces, but the one bit I want to show, I'm going to flick the camera around for, and I don't even know how to do it in this thing. Let's see. Nope, that doesn't change it. So I'm going to put the camera up on a stand, and I'm going to concentrate on the toolbox a wee minute, and we're going to look at this side of the tractor and see what I can do. That looks a lot better on the camera than it does in real life. So my wee toolbox, I gave it a wee flat of paint. I'm quite pleased with that. These wee brackets, I'm pretty sure there's probably going to be a wee bit underneath them that has been scraped from me baiting them on, but I don't see it. It's in there. My oil filter housing was completely rotted through, and I managed to fall in with an oil filter housing, that wee Ferguson spanner, the two wee filler necks, and a couple of other bits and pieces, all off the one person. Now, I'm not 100% convinced that it's just right because the threads are very tight at the beginning. Once you get it started, it's fine. It could just be the bolt. But I'm not happy with this wee toolbox's base. Just basically got 3 holes in the bottom of it. But when I want to put the spanners in it, they're just going to be battering about and scraping the arse of that. I don't really like that. So I'm going to down her over here. I have a mat out of a toolbox. Base for one of my toolbox drawers. So this goes into one of the drawers from my Halfords toolbox, and that drawer died a long time ago. That's lying in around the back. So with a pair of scissors, that'll need to be clean because it's not just perfect. But with a pair of scissors, I cut that out. And I'm going to bring you in and let you see that. Let's see now. What we end up with is a bit OTT, I'm fully aware. This light's terrible. But now whenever I get my little filler necks, and where did I put my Ferguson? Places of state. One of these random spanners. My wee Ferguson spanner, I can set that down on there, and I know that that's not going to end up, it'll probably still rattle, but there's something in me tells me that having a wee bit of rubber matting down on the bottom of it is going to leave it nicer. And then again, that is a very, very high shine. I'm not sure if I should keep the gloss. I might go for satin. It might grow on me. And I managed to get this wee bracket repainted. It was completely the wrong colour with me buying the wrong tin of paint. Now, I have since disassembled this horn, put it back together again. It makes noise, but the noise that comes out of it is horrific. So I think what I'm actually going to do is, somewhere in this little cavity in here, I'm going to get a modern horn, hide it up and below the battery tray, and just wire it in. I'll probably run 2 wires off this into no man's land that doesn't do anything, just for the look. And there's the boss on. Hello, boss. And for her 3rd time so far. So I'm going to run a couple of wires off the back of this here just for looks, but I think I would like a horn buried up in here somewhere, or I'll find a spot for it. But I'm going to start building up the dash, putting the steering wheel back on again, and I have a lovely wee piece of rubber to go on here. So I'm not entirely sure what's the best angle to try and get at this, but I think I'm going to try and put the camera behind the tractor. So if you've seen how sketchy that camera is sitting right now, you definitely would judge me. Now, I'm going to set that wee boy in because I want him sitting straight up and down. I have no reason for that. I just think it looks nicer. I know I'm being overly fussy with this, but sure, why not? So that wee boy goes on the front, and in the back it's just a wee bulb with a resistor. I'm not entirely sure how the internals work, but I know that the light only comes on whether it's actually charging, I think it is. So I'll have to tinker with that as well. I have the wiring loom there to go onto it, and I struggled to figure out which wire went where, but I managed to rebuild this mechanism in here. But I had to change. There's a wee ball on either end. There's a ball on the end of the mechanism for this, and then there's a ball on the shaft that runs right up to the governor. I had to replace them and make everything play nicely with each other. Didn't really want to play ball, but it plays ball enough that hopefully it'll get me a chance to try and set the governors and to set all that. Now, my wee NGK keyring from the dark ages that I found in a box somewhere. Now, I literally just went out and bought an ignition key because there wasn't actually one with this tractor. This bit was just a hole. So I'd imagine that wire's just been hot wired at some point. Tractor was in really bad condition, and unfortunately, I believe somebody has had a wee go at long-term borrowing parts off the tractor. I'm missing my airbox completely. I think somebody's away with it. And a whole lot of wee bits and pieces on her had been screwed at and tampered with. And I know this tractor was parked running, so she wouldn't have been missing the distributor, she wouldn't have been missing any of that other stuff because she was parked running. So, that key in there. I think I'll get a different key ring for it, but I want to keep a key ring on it so I don't lose the key. Now this wee boy here, I'm going to leave to another time because I'm not sure how to go about that. But I think I'm going to try to put this rubber boy on. That might not just be so easy. Oh, there's my wee switch. Hold on. We seem to be breaking the place. Now, it's not perfect, but this is just a wee random switch we found in a box. I don't know if it's related to this or not. You see how it has the wee notch top and bottom? Well, over here has the wee notch top and bottom. So, I do plan for this to go on here. But, let's see if I take a wee danner across, see if I can find this wee boy I was talking about. I have it here somewhere, but I'm going to have to make one up, I think. I even toyed with the idea at one point of cutting it out of a piece of copper, but when I seen what it looked like on the dash, it just looked silly. So, that wee boy, I'm just going to leave on top of the seat. And I am going to reposition the camera again to let you see a better view of what I'm doing. This could be the 3rd time I've had this off and on. So I have already made, the rubber comes without any holes in it, and I had to punch holes in it to make it fit. Now, I would have thought that it would have been, this was me putting it on upside down, but according to what I found out found out online the wee rib in it is a rain trap to stop the water from running down the dash, which I think is a bit excessive, but I have this wee box for the bowl for my fuel. I've put all the wee stubs into it. They're funny looking wee boys. They're like a wee rivet with a split in it. And what I have to do then is try and line up the small hole I've made in the rubber with the small hole that's in the dash, and then the small hole in the back of the rubber. And I'm not going to lie to you, it's a bit of a curse. And then how do you spread that? So what I've been doing is, once I get it through, I've been using a flathead of a screwdriver to basically just spread them apart enough to the holes, and you end up with ones that are crooked like that. Now, whenever I had to take this back off again because I wanted to paint the dash for my third or fourth time, I had to pull them out with a pair of point nose pliers. And to be fair now, it came out a lot easier than I thought they would. So I think I'm going to have to make a better job of putting them on and then spreading them with something. Hard to get down through that second piece of rubber. Probably would have been a better way to make holes in the rubber, but I don't have anything that hole punches it, or I have one of them things for doing your belt, and I tried it and it cut it, but I didn't cut a hole in it. It just didn't work the way I thought it would. A hot soldering iron is probably the best way to do it, but I don't want a big mushroomed head on the far side of it whenever I push that through. Sore in the thumbs. Right. That was too wide. I know you can't see a thing I'm doing, but as well once I get round to that far side. Just to be clear, I have never drove this tractor in my life. And the day this thing starts going will be day one of driving lessons on a Ferguson tractor. Anybody out there that's going to be at the tractor runs whenever I have this girl out, just bear with me, because it could be a bit sketchy. That's one thing I'm worried about, and that's why I'm probably being a wee bit over fussy with things like the brakes. There'd be nothing worse than going to all this bother and then driving around a wall because you couldn't get stopped. So I think it's just over caution at this point. This is the first time I have sat on her complete. And because I have her sitting on two bar stools with two axle stands on top of milk crates, I probably shouldn't be sitting on her. But I don't want to jinx myself because that would be a very bad day. I have to give credit to whoever built them bar stools. I have put some weight in them and they have never so much as even wiggled, nor frayed, nor nothing. They're brilliant. That's really fiddly. You can get it through the rubber at the front, and then you can eyeball it in through the hole in the dash. Every time I go to spread these wee boys with a screwdriver, all I do is push them back out through the hole again. I can nearly do with like a crimping tool. See, that wee boy spread like a Y. But I would like more of it to be spread. I don't think they'd be the sort of wee boys you could just buy off the shelf. They came with it. I don't even know where you'd go to buy them, so I don't want to lose any. And they're spread as well. I think it was worth taking the time and sanding down that dash doing the isopon on a couple of scrapes. And I think there's 3 separate coats of isopon all sanded back down to they're basically not there anymore, just to take down any of the low spots and the dents. That's the first isopon that's been on her, and I'd prefer not to just sit and glamour up all the wee bits, because there's grinding marks on the side of the gearbox and I don't even know why they're there. But it was maybe my dad had done them. It was maybe on the tractor when he got her, but I'm just going to leave them on it. That wee boy's not straight. It's funny when you're sitting on a thing, it looks different. So that wee light was crooked. That's better. The oil pressure and the water temp, I have them in, but I'm not running this boy yet. There seems to be a bit too much of this. I'm not entirely sure what is the best way to run it, because any pictures I've seen, it runs up the passenger side behind the distributor and behind the coil up into the thermostat housing. But I done a wee trial run today and I have about 1.5 foot extra that I don't know what to do with. I'm going to have to lose on there somewhere. And I need the wee pipe that goes from the back of the oil pressure down to the side of the engine, because mine didn't even have it. I would rot it off long ago. So steering wheel's the next boy. I have to find the steering wheel. I'm scared of couping this thing. Oh, here, I'm not finished. I need to spread them wee boys. This is typical me. You start a job and then you get distracted and then you don't go back to it. Let's see, find a screwdriver or something. That's a star head, flathead. That's the best way to go about this. Just put that in and I think I'll just bend them over. They're like them really crappy things you got years ago at school for holding pages together. And it was like a weird pin that you spread the wee legs to hold the pages together. And it's just exactly what it looks like. A broad screwdriver might do it. Really know what's the... I'm probably having somebody screaming at me going, "Oh, you're doing that wrong." I haven't a clue what I'm doing. And not a single video can I find on the internet of anybody doing this. So, if anybody else has got a better idea on how you spread these wee boys, please let me know, because I'm struggling here. Pair of pliers from the dark ages. That seems to work. Okay, I'll maybe pick up a pair that's not just red with rust. So, with that wee boy there, I think you just have to start spreading it by hand and then go in with the pliers and just squeeze it flat. That has pulled that wee boy in fantastic. I don't know how I'm going to get into that bottom one though. Right, well what I'll do is I'll spend the next probably half an hour messing about with that and try and get them all done, and then I'll come back to you whenever I start to put the steering wheel back on, because that's going to be a very boring watch. I'm going to try recording this in a close-up so you can see what I'm struggling with. So this wee boy here, I've already put the screwdriver into it. I'm basically trying to force them wee legs round. But when you put pressure on it, you have to press it with your finger on the top to stop it just going straight up through again. So now I'll get a pair of pliers. You have to have one side of the pliers on the wee button top to stop it pulling up through, and then squash that, and then do the other side and squash that without damaging the rubber, which, believe it or not, is actually more challenging than you would think. So that leaves that wee boy like a wee spread staple. I don't really like the look of it, but it seems to be quite effective at holding it on. You wouldn't want to catch your finger on them, I know that much. That's as tight as I can get them. They're very clumsy looking on the inside, but on the outside you're left with a nice wee silver rivet top. Shouldn't ever be having my hand running along the inside of this, so it shouldn't be a problem, but that was just to give you an explanation of just how fiddly that is. Now, screwdriver back in the screwdriver drawer, pliers back on the bench. I'm going to get climbed up on here without counting the tractor. Or, he says optimistically. Now, I of course had to replace all of this. The steering wheel, it had folded over. It was really bad. I kept it. I'm keeping all of it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I might try and make something out of it, but there's a wee keyway on this, and you could lose the keyway very easy, or the wee key. It is very loose, that wee boy there. So this wee silver collar, I had to actually get separately. It didn't come with the steering wheel. I had quite a lot of difficulty getting it to stay in place. It wanted to fall down. So I'll be honest with you, what I ended up doing was, before I fitted it, I ran about 3 runs or 4 runs of black insulating tape to give it a tighter, snug fit. And I had to genuinely force it quite hard down onto that. And that stopped it. It was just rattling about like a wee loose thing. So it might not last. It's a bit of a crude method, but insulating tape sort of created a rubber gasket nearly between the two faces. Now, on this, obviously you get a big keyway. I don't think it really matters what position the keyway what position the keyway's in. This is fiddly, and I struggled with this the last time. But the lighting in this workshop is good for when you're welding and fabricating, but see when you're working with something and you need light from above. My lighting on here is 3 lights out of Screwfix that are supposed to be yard lights, just LED lights. Great light off them, but they create terrible shadows. And we're on. And you have this wee boy just to dress it up. He goes on top, and then one of them boys. But to tighten this is quite a challenge, because I could really have done with the steering connected for it to actually tighten in a manner that's easy. So I'm going to go for ye old shifting spanner. I'll just try and hold the steering wheel the best I can, and if I have to in the future put any more torque on this, I'll wait till I have the wheels on the ground and go full lock and force it from there. But basically all I want to do is to get her as tight as I'm comfortable with it. Should I forget, she's not going to fall off. Seen a video recently of somebody reversing a rebuilt tractor and it just ran off on him because the steering wheel fell off. I don't want that. So I have to address these side steps. I have them on and I'm not really happy with them, in the sense of my paint job. I'm not happy with it. The side steps are fine, so I have them to do. I have the steering linkages that go from here to the front axle to sand down and to paint. I've started to them, but I haven't them done yet. But I'm going to show you what I did do, which is a bit excessive, but I just hold it up to the camera here. I went through and I have, with a fine paintbrush, painted any of the black bits on them. I know it's stupid, but I don't really want to paint the top cap. There's no reason to paint it at the minute. And then that way, whenever I put them into the freshly painted ones, I don't have what everybody else seems to do, where they paint the rubber boot. There's nothing looks worse than a crack in paint on a rubber boot. But I have all 4 of them all painted up. I just need to paint the linkages now. And then once I paint the linkages, I can get them on and set the steering. So I'm going to try and see if I can take this camera back a wee bit here now and tidy up and get this into some sort of order. So folks, my videoing skills have got another level of issues. Just recorded a whole bit. Microphone wasn't turned on, so that means there's no sound. So I'm just giving myself more problems. But I've been all over the show tonight trying to get the last few bits of this tidied up to put a video out this Thursday. And I tried, and I wasted a lot of time trying to solder the joints on this here. Now, I did weld a patch. I'm a welder by trade. I'm not happy with the patch. So I thought I could dress it up with a wee bit of solder. Traditional style. It would have been nice to say, oh, I soldered the thing. No, it's not working. So I'm going to cut that bit out and weld a new bit in, grind it flat like it was never done. But this week's video, that's about all I can do because I'm running out of time and I'm running out of energy. But I've got the front axle fully rebuilt and I'm very pleased with that. I think that looks well. And then I actually replaced, I don't know if you can see, I replaced the bolts on the top that hold these big legs. Me beating it down in last night with a hammer, I stripped the threads off it. And to be honest with you, that means all the bolts on the front axle are nice, shiny, new, nickel plated. That was probably an excuse on my part to get the nice, shiny silver bits. And then I did go and get new bolts to hold this on. And I'm quite pleased with that. Might stay with the gloss, I don't know. Looks okay in the magneto or the dynamo or whatever it's called. But the oil filter, she's black gloss as well. Nothing on this tractor's going to be original, let's be honest. But I'm very pleased about the dash after all the other stuff I've done of the toolbox on, of the side steps on. But to be honest with you, that looks well. I'm quite pleased with that. It was worth doing that last wee run. Obviously, I still need to do this wee boy here, but it was worth doing the second run with the Isopon. Not a fan of Isopon, especially in an out tractor, but I think taking that scrape out of her was definitely a plus. So in next week's video, I know what I need to do next week, and I know what I can afford to do next week, which isn't very much, but I want to put the hitch on. So we have this nice big T-bar gifted to me by my mate Wally, and the only issue I have is I don't have the stays, but with the amount of stuff I have lying around here, I'm sure I could make 2 stays. But I need to get 2 bits of angle iron to mount onto the holes on the underside to hold said hitch, because I don't have it either. Let's see. There's the hitch. So, nice big heavy lump of steel. Nice big heavy lump of steel. But I need to do a plate to line up with these holes and to line up these holes. But that's next week's video. Between the hitch and the radiator, if I can get them 2 on next week, I think I'll be flying. And those 2 shouldn't really cost me anything other than maybe a wee bit of angle iron. But for everybody that has decided to watch the video, I'm chuffed to bits that you're even watching it. So, and thanks very much for the advice and all the bits and pieces that you've been messaging me with, because even things like the distributor, I need advice because I don't know what I'm looking at. So thanks very much again for watching, and I'll put a video out again next Thursday. I'm just going to do this every Thursday. I've picked a really bad day because I end up rushing on a Wednesday to get a lot of stuff done. But if I don't pick a day, the videos won't come out regularly. So thanks very much, anybody that is watching. I appreciate it, and I'll see you again next week.